Hi guys, welcome back to yet another fun DIY sailboat refit video here aboard good old Athena. This video might, hopefully, potentially mark the last big round of laying up fiberglass. Over the last 4 years, I've rebuilt the deck, complete with new core and new top skin. Even I have also laid up a layer of glass on the hull under the waterline as part of an osmosis treatment. And I've also reinforced the structural members under the cabin sole. To be completely honest, I have just about had my fill of laying up glass. It is tedious, time-consuming, and fairly expensive. Even when you use something like vacuum infusion, like I did for the new rudder, you might save a little bit on the epoxy, but then there's all of the consumables. Long story short, I am just really excited to get this week checked off the to-do list. Because after this week, like I said, I should be done laying up all of the glass on the outside of the boat. Yesterday I finished laying up glass on the starboard deck hull joint. That took 5.5 hours, and that's not including the time it took to sand and prep the surface. That is just for a quick wipe down and laying up glass. The good news is, it turned out fairly well. By fairly well, I mean there is definitely going to be some fairing in my not too distant future, but that was to be expected. I still have the port side deck hull joint to deal with, as well as all of the openings from the old port lights. Today is glass cutting day. I've already made myself 2 little templates. Unfortunately, my electronic shears are out of battery, so this is going to have to be the old-fashioned way. Although it might not look like much, I've got all the glass I need for this week right here. That little time lapse represents about 2 hours worth of work. In a previous video, I laid up glass on the inside of the hull to cover up the old holes from the port lights. What I've got here is all of the glass for the outside part of that repair. I'm hoping I can get most of this laid up today. I'm using epoxy from West Systems 105 series. There are plenty of other brands of epoxy out there, but I've always had good luck with West System, so that's why I'm kind of sticking with them. 105 is the resin, and of course for that you also need a hardener. In this case it's their 205, which is their fast hardener. There's also a 206, which is for slightly warmer weather, and a 209 for really warm weather. I've built myself this little epoxy heating box, although the combination of 105 and 205 is going to cure down to 5 degrees Celsius or 41 degrees Fahrenheit. At low temperatures, the viscosity of the epoxy gets to resemble kind of oatmeal, and wetting out glass with that is not fun. If you're going to be working with epoxy in temperatures under, let's say, 15 degrees Celsius or 60 degrees Fahrenheit, I highly recommend you build something like this. For one, like I said, it's easier to wet out glass, but also just pumping the resin out is so much easier if the epoxy is a little bit warm. There are also some benefits when it comes to the chemical reaction between the hardener and the resin, but yeah, just for the ease of pumping it out and for wetting out glass, I think this thing is easily worth it. For smaller repairs, like what I'm going to be doing in this video, I find that it's easier to wet out the glass before applying it to your repair, and that's why I've set up this little workstation. I've got everything I need here. I've got my fin rollers, I've got some cups, stir sticks, and some gloves, and of course my fiberglass. Now if you're doing a larger repair or something that's overhead, wetting out the glass before putting it in place is maybe not the best idea. There's a very high likelihood that you're going to end up covered in epoxy.
Here on the telephone, 'cause we've no idea when we're coming home. Any place we wander to, any season we go through, I'll be fine.
It's a couple of days later. The weather has been a little bit iffy, so I haven't laid up a lot of glass, but there are two good pieces of news. For one, the weather today is supposed to be perfect, and also I've gotten all of the new pieces of the cabin sole painted. So as soon as I've got the hoses for the new diesel tank and the little tank center, I can go ahead and get all of this installed. All of that fun stuff is going to have to wait, because for now we're stuck in the world's suckiest amusement park, Fiberglass Land. Why don't we start out the day by riding the biggest ride in the park, and that is the deck hole joint ride. Last week I prepped the joint. I did a lot of oh glorious sanding. So this week it is just, in quotes, a matter of laying up the glass. Now, this is a cross section of the deck hole joint. Aboard Athena, the deck hole joint is already glassed here on the inside, so I don't have to worry about that. Because the inside of the joint is already glassed, I'm not too concerned about strength. But aboard Athena, unlike on most boats, there is no kind of adhesive or caulk in this joint here. Add to that the fact that there are a bunch of holes penetrating this from the old tow rail. Well, if water gets in here, it gets inside of the boat, so I want to seal this outside here. For me to lay up glass here, I need to smooth out this area here. I've already put a slight bevel on the deck, but that's not enough. For the rest of it, I'm just going to fill this with a little bit of thickened epoxy. Over that bead of thickened epoxy, I'm going to add 3 layers of this. This is 600 gram BX. You guys saw me cut all of this BX a little bit earlier, and that is definitely one of the suckier ride in the amusement park. So why not just use something like this fiberglass tape? For one, I've already got a bunch of this BX and I don't have any plans for it, so I figured I might as well use it rather than just let it go to waste. Also, even though I'm not too concerned about strength, the BX is a much better choice for this than the fiberglass tape. And that has to do with the orientation of the fibers. This is one of those strips of BX I cut a little bit earlier. The fibers in this are oriented like this and this, whereas in the tape, they're oriented like this and this. So if we say this line here between the two pieces of cardboard represents the deck hole joint, for the BX the fibers would be crossing like this, whereas the tape they would be like this. And as you can see here, all of the fibers are crossing that joint, whereas here half of them are just parallel to the joint. As you can see, in the BX, the fibers were oriented along plus and minus 45 degrees, whereas in the tape here, it's along 0 and 90 degrees. And of course, to get the most bang for your buck, you want as many of the fibers to be crossing the joint. The ones that are parallel to it are basically just wasted. Like I said, for this particular repair, the deck hole joint is already glassed on the inside, so I'm not too concerned about strength. But it's certainly always worth it to consider the orientations of the fibers when you're making any kind of a repair. The deck hole joint is roughly 12 meters long, so I'm going to be working in sections roughly the length of my scaffolding. So I'm going to be putting down the bead of thickened epoxy, laying up fiberglass, and putting on peel ply before moving on to the next section. During the day, you guys might see another boat kind of sneak in here next to the cement boat. That is Mr. Cement Boat Guy's brother. He's got some repairs he needs to take care of. The weather forecast makes no mention of rain today. Those clouds look pretty dark, but I'm gonna go ahead and take the chance. I would be hard-pressed to think of something better to do than to spend an entire day laying up fiberglass. Oh, no, wait, it's the other way around. Most things are preferable to that. All kidding aside, yesterday, like you saw, I took care of the deck hull joint, and I also took care of the little bit of hull damage I sanded last week. Areas like the one you see up here and also over here. There were some cracks in the gel coat, and as you can see, there is also a little bit of damage to the laminate. Now, from a structural standpoint, I'm not worried about that. I just want to make sure that once I'm done fairing and painting the hull, I don't get those cracks again. To stabilize the surface, all I did was just to lay up a single layer of this very light fiberglass. It looks a little bit messy right now, but it's easier just to sand away the excess here than trying to cut a patch of fiberglass that exactly matches this shape. I was all excited about the fact that I was done laying up fiberglass until I got up into the cockpit and noticed this thing. I patched up the inside of this opening for an old port light last fall, but as you can see, I still need to take care of the outside. Yep, you guessed it, today is gonna be even more sanding fiberglass, and also I hope to get started fairing. I called my epoxy pusher earlier this week to get my hands on some ProSet 625, but they were sold out, so now I'm stuck using this 407. Truth be told, 407 is not my favorite when it comes to fairing. It's pretty time consuming to mix it with the epoxy, and also I usually end up with little pinholes. But before I can get to use the 407, I do have a little bit of sanding to take care of. No week is complete without some oh glorious sanding. The deck hull joint is now all sanded and ready, as are the opening for the port lights and those tiny little repairs where there are some cracks in the gel coat. That little bit of excess fiberglass was very easy to remove, and this is what it looks like now, ready for fairing. The deck hull joint is also 100% ready for fairing. This is what 407 looks like. It's brown reddish in color, and it's got little white flakes in it. The little white flakes in here are actually 406, and I think they add those to make it easier to get a no sag consistency. Before I start mixing 407, I'm just going to give the entire surface a quick wipe down with some alcohol. I am by no means a fairing expert, so don't just go copying what I'm about to show you here, because it might be a little bit ass backwards. There might be an easier way of doing this. But for fairing, you don't need to be an expert, you just need to be stubborn, and eventually you'll get a good result. I'm gonna add as little 407 as I possibly can to get a no sag consistency, so maybe a little bit more than this. Like I said, I am no expert when it comes to fairing, but I do have a plan. I don't know if it's a good plan, but at least it's a plan. The way I see it, I've got three surfaces I need to deal with. I've got the side of the hull down here, and I've got the top of the deck, and then I've got this outside radius here. My plan is to first fair the side of the hull, then the top of the deck, and once those two are done, then I'll worry about this outside radius. We're supposed to get some rain later today, so I'm not going to be laying up any more fairing compound for now, but I can go ahead and get started sanding what I put up yesterday. For said glorious sanding, I've got some options. I've got a Durablock, two different sizes of the manual flexi sanders. I've also got an electric version of this, but just for the first initial rough pass, I think I'm gonna go with my 150 turbo. And here comes the rain. I barely had time to get started, but that's perfectly okay with me. I could do with a little bit of a break. Now, so far it's looking pretty decent. I am gonna have to go over it again, but I was kind of expecting that. If I keep at this, I should be done fairing the deck hull joint in maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks, and that means it's time for us to start thinking about the color of the hull. I'm a pretty boring person, so I'm kind of leaning towards just painting the hull the same color as the deck, the same white. And then maybe a single stripe in some kind of nice gray. Yes, I know, very adventurous. I've taken all of June off of my day job to really be able to get some progress on Athena. That also means I need to start lining up the projects for June to make sure that I've got all the materials and everything I need. I would love to get the tow rail or mini bulwarks mounted in June, but that means I need to have these stainless steel bracket holdy thingies that are gonna go here ready, so I should get started on those very soon. I'd also love to get the fridge built in June once I'm done mounting all of the deck hardware, but that means I need to get my hands on the foam insulation. I was planning on using XPS foam, but that apparently is pretty hard to come by here in Denmark. Or, well, you can get it, but you need to purchase a set amount, like a pallet at the time, and that is way more than I need. It would also be nice to get started on the arch this summer, but that means I need to find somebody that knows how to bend pipe and do that well. I've also got Athena's fiberglass Dodger hiding out up there. It's all ready to get mounted. I just need to figure out what to use for the windows. The windows are not plastic. They're glass. That glass is going to get mounted in these aluminum profiles in here, so I need some kind of sealant or adhesive. So even though the next couple of weeks is going to be a lot of fairing, and that might not be the most interesting content, there is some other exciting stuff coming up to look forward to. And that is basically going to be it for this video. I hope to see all of you guys back here in the workshop and aboard Athena for lots of Oh Glorious sanding next week. As always, feel free to leave a comment down below, and don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like. See you! Degree angle, whereas on the tape here, it's along the 0. Well, that sucks. It is glass cutting day. I've already made myself 2 little templates. Unfortunately, my electronic shears are out of battery, so this is gonna have to